You've been staring at your phone for the past hour, refreshing the same screen, waiting for the message that'll finally release the knot in your chest. Your jaw is clenched, your shoulders are stone, and somewhere deep down you know this desperate watching isn't helping. It's making things worse. Here's the paradox nobody talks about. The harder you focus on what you want, the further it moves away. Not because the universe is cruel, but because your attention itself is creating a feedback loop that locks you into the exact reality you're trying to escape. What if I told you that the very act of observing with tension is collapsing the quantum possibilities that could set you free? Every anxious check, every tight expectation, every "why isn't this working yet?" is broadcasting a frequency that reality has no choice but to match. You're not failing because you're not trying hard enough. You're stuck because your attention quality has become a searchlight in the dark, desperately hunting for proof while missing the entire illuminated landscape just outside that narrow beam. The breakthrough you're looking for doesn't require more effort. It requires a specific kind of release, a recalibration so immediate that reality reorganizes within minutes, not months. What I'm about to show you contradicts everything you've been taught about manifestation and success. But if you're exhausted from forcing, if you're tired of pushing uphill while everyone else seems to catch their break, then you're exactly where you need to be. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to turn off the observer loop and watch reality recalibrate in real time without you lifting a finger. Let me tell you about a Tuesday morning that changed everything I thought I knew about attention quality. I was sitting at my desk, jaw clenched, shoulders up near my ears, refreshing my email for the third time in 5 minutes. I was waiting for a response that would make or break a project I'd been forcing for weeks. My coffee had gone cold. My cat had given up trying to get my attention, and here's what hit me like a lightning bolt. The tighter I gripped, the more reality seemed to slip through my fingers. That's when I first recognized what I now call the observer loop, and honestly, it felt like discovering I'd been walking around with my shoelaces tied together my whole life. The thing is, we've all been taught that focus equals success, right? But there's a world of difference between coherent attention and what I call searchlight mode. When you're in that tense, narrow focus, checking and rechecking, your body's creating what quantum physics calls temporal echoes. Think of it this way: you're essentially broadcasting the same frequency over and over, and the quantum field just keeps serving you more of the same. Your jaw tightens, your shoulders creep up, you're scrolling, refreshing, waiting, and the universe, it's like, "Oh, you want more waiting? Here, have some more waiting." It's not punishment, it's just feedback. The reality feedback loop is mirroring your internal state with shocking precision. Here's where it gets wild, and I've tested this so many times it's almost embarrassing. Technology becomes this beautiful, brutal mirror of your consciousness. When I'm contracted and tight, apps freeze, my computer glitches, downloads stall at 99%. But after I take a walk, breathe deeply for even 2 minutes, suddenly everything works again. Same device, same Wi-Fi, different state. I'm not talking mystical nonsense here. I'm talking about observable, repeatable patterns. The breakthrough phase doesn't come from doing more. It comes from releasing the micro-tensions you didn't even know you were holding. Your attention literally creates probability waves that either expand or contract your available reality tracks. Let me give you the most practical reset I've found, something you can do right now. First, take a 5 to 10 minute walk without your phone. I know, it feels impossible, but just try it. Let your eyes soften. Notice trees, clouds, the way light hits a building. Then, when you're back, sit down and do what I call the 4 to 6 breath. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6, hands resting on your heart. Do this for just 2 minutes. What you're doing is shifting from searchlight mode to what I call sunlight consciousness. Instead of that narrow beam desperately illuminating the same corner of the room while the rest stays dark, you're becoming the sun itself, radiating in all directions. The unified field responds to coherence frequency, not to how hard you're trying. You'll know it's working when you feel this subtle expansion in your chest, like someone just opened a window in a stuffy room. Your vision literally softens. Colors seem richer. That knot between your shoulder blades, it releases. And here's the thing that'll blow your mind. Solutions start appearing in your peripheral vision, in places you weren't even looking. That's not coincidence. That's the observer effect working in your favor instead of against you. When you stop collapsing every probability wave with anxious observation, quantum openings appear that were always there, just outside your narrow beam of desperate focus. The field's been waiting for you to relax so it can deliver what you've been chasing. Think about how morphic resonance works in nature. When one bird in a flock shifts direction, the whole flock moves as one. Your attention works the same way. When you shift from tense seeking to coherent presence, the entire feedback loop recalibrates. I've watched this happen with money, relationships, opportunities, health, everything. The moment I stopped checking my bank account 5 times a day and started trusting the flow, money showed up from sources I never expected. When I stopped stalking someone's social media and focused on my own wholeness, either the relationship healed or something better appeared. The quantum sensitivity of reality is responding to the quality of your observation, not the quantity of your effort. And what's coming next will show you exactly how to read reality's feedback before it even fully materializes. Your dreams aren't random neural fireworks while your brain takes out the trash. They're actually trailers of probability, sneak previews of timelines your consciousness is testing before they collapse into physical reality. The quantum field runs simulations through your unconscious mind every single night, showing you potential reality tracks before you've committed to any of them. Most people wake up, shake off the weird imagery, and jump straight into their phones. But what if I told you that your dreams are giving you intel about which timeline you're currently locked onto and which quantum openings are available? It's like having a backstage pass to your own reality creation process, and most of us are throwing that ticket away every morning. Here's a protocol that changed everything for me, and it's simpler than you'd think. For 7 days, keep a dream diary right next to your bed. The moment you wake up, before you move, before you check anything, jot down just 3 things: the main scenario, the dominant emotion you felt, and any action that felt incomplete or pending. Don't analyze it yet. Just capture it. What you're doing is training your conscious mind to catch the feedback loop between your waking attention and your dream state. After about 3 days, you'll start noticing patterns, recurring symbols, repeated emotions, doors that are always locked or always open. These aren't Freudian puzzles to decode. They're markers showing you where your observer loop is creating repetition. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and I mean goosebumps interesting. The environment around you is also giving you feedback about your coherence frequency. I started tracking this after I noticed my cat would only cuddle on certain days. At first, I thought it was random feline mood swings, but then I cross-referenced it with my internal state. On days when I was in coherent attention, not forcing anything, just present and open, my cat wouldn't leave my lap. On days when I was tight and anxious, hunting for results, he'd avoid me completely. Animals are incredibly sensitive to the reality feedback loop because they're not stuck in mental loops like we are. They read the field directly. Plants do this too, and you can test it yourself if you've got anything green in your home. Check your plants on days when you're in that tense, contracted state versus days when you've done your breathing practice and you're feeling expansive. I'm not talking about watering schedules or light. I'm talking about their overall vibe. During my most coherent weeks, I've watched plants produce new shoots, leaves perk up, colors deepen. During weeks when I'm stuck in the observer loop, forcing outcomes, Same plants look droopy, even with identical care. It sounds crazy until you see it with your own eyes. The morphic resonance of your attention literally affects the life force around you. Your pets, your plants, even the quality of light in your space responds to whether you're emitting or desperately seeking. But the feedback gets even more granular. Start noticing what I call environmental miracles. On days when you've released the searchlight and you're just being the sun, watch what happens. Background noises that usually irritate you, they somehow disappear. Traffic flows, you hit green lights, strangers smile at you for no reason. Baristas give you the good table without asking. These aren't lucky breaks. They're evidence that you've shifted reality tracks. The unified field is reorganizing around your new frequency. I used to think this was confirmation bias until I tested it deliberately. 1 week of tight, anxious observation. Everything felt hard. Next week, same schedule, same activities, but with coherent attention, everything flowed. Same person, same life, completely different timeline experience. Let me share something personal that'll drive this home. After about a week of keeping my dream journal, a symbol kept showing up. A door that was slightly open, just a crack of light coming through. I'd reach for the handle in the dream, but I'd always wake up before opening it. Then one morning I did my breathing practice, released the need to control, and went about my day. By noon, I got an unexpected call about a collaboration I'd been trying to force for 3 months. The person calling literally said, "I felt like the door just opened for this." Same words. I hadn't mentioned the dream to anyone. That's not coincidence. That's temporal echoes resolving when you stop collapsing the wave function with anxious observation. And what I'm about to show you next takes this feedback system from subtle to unmistakable. There's this moment that happens, usually around 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, where you're lying there mentally rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet, checking invisible boxes, running through scenarios. That's flashlight consciousness. You're sweeping a narrow beam back and forth in the dark, hoping to catch something, anything, that'll give you certainty. But here's what nobody tells you. The quantum field doesn't respond to exhaustion. It doesn't reward the most anxious person in the room. It responds to coherence frequency, to that stable, radiating presence that doesn't need to hunt, because it knows it's already connected to the unified field, that sunlight consciousness. The sun doesn't chase the plants, it just shines, and everything grows toward it. The real game changer is learning what I call coherent uncertainty. This isn't the collapsed, fearful "I don't know" that keeps you up at night. It's a fertile, open "I don't know" that actually expands probability waves instead of collapsing them prematurely. Think about it. When you're waiting for news about a project, a relationship, a medical test, whatever, and you're checking your email, every 5 minutes you're collapsing quantum openings before they can fully form. You're forcing reality to give you an answer right now, even if right now isn't the optimal moment. But when you can hold that space of not knowing without contracting into fear, you create what physicists call superposition. Multiple timelines stay active. The field has room to organize the highest timeline for you. Let me give you a micro practice that literally takes 2 minutes but shifts everything. You can do this before any meeting, any difficult conversation, any moment where you'd normally go into searchlight mode. Start with 30 seconds of heart-centered breathing. Hands on your chest, inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6. Feel your attention drop out of your head and into your heart space. Then, for 60 seconds, practice peripheral vision. Don't focus on anything specific. Just soften your gaze and let your awareness expand to include everything in your visual field at once. You're training your attention to be the sun, not the flashlight. Finally, 30 seconds of objectless gratitude. Don't think of things you're grateful for. Just drop into the feeling of appreciation itself, like you're savoring the best meal you've ever had. I tested this before a meeting that I knew was going to be tense. Usually, I'd walk in with my mental script, My defense is up, ready to advocate and push. This time, I did the 2-minute practice right outside the conference room. Walked in with that peripheral vision still active, that gratitude still humming in my chest. I didn't go in to get anything. I went in to emit coherence. Within 5 minutes, the whole energy shifted. What was supposed to be a confrontation about missed deadlines turned into a collaborative, problem-solving session. People started offering solutions I hadn't even asked for. One person literally said, "I don't know why, but I feel like we can figure this out together." That's the reality feedback loop responding to attention quality, not to how well I argued my case. Here's the phrase that'll anchor this whole concept. Attention stops hunting and starts radiating. When you make that shift, you're no longer trying to extract outcomes from reality. You're emitting a frequency that attracts aligned outcomes to you. It's the difference between fishing with a spear, thrashing around in the water hoping to stab something, versus becoming the kind of water where fish naturally want to swim. The observer effect works both ways. Yes, you collapse possibility into form through observation, but the quality of that observation determines which possibilities even show up in your field to begin with. Anxious observation creates limited options. Coherent observation creates quantum sensitivity where the field can deliver things you didn't even know were available. And here's what most people miss. This isn't about being passive or checking out. Coherent uncertainty is deeply active. You're fully engaged, fully present, but you're not strangling outcomes. You're holding space for phase transition, for the breakthrough that comes when the old reality track dissolves and the new one hasn't fully formed yet. That in-between space? That's not emptiness. That's where parallel timelines are still sorting themselves out, where your coherent attention is the deciding vote on which timeline consolidates into your experience. Stay in flashlight mode during that phase, and you'll lock onto the anxious timeline. Shift to sunlight mode, and you'll magnetize the expansive one. But what I'm about to show you next is the trap that catches even people who think they've mastered this. Here's the sneaky part that took me months to catch. You can look calm on the outside, sound spiritual, say all the right things about surrender and flow, while your body is still running the old program at a whisper level. I call this sophisticated malfunction. You're not obviously anxious anymore. You've learned the language, you're doing the practices, but check your jaw right now. Is it clenched? Are your shoulders creeping toward your ears? Is your finger itching to check your phone even though you checked it 2 minutes ago? These micro-tensions are like background apps draining your battery. They're subtle enough that you don't notice them, but loud enough that the quantum field absolutely registers them as contracted attention, not coherent presence. I caught myself doing this just last month. I was working on something important, telling myself I was totally relaxed about the outcome, breathing properly, doing everything right. But then I noticed, every time I walked past my phone, my hand would drift toward it. Not a full grab, just a little gravitational pull, and my jaw locked tight. The moment I actually observed that pattern without judgment, just pure observation, something released. I put the phone in another room, deliberately relaxed my jaw, and went back to what I was doing. Within 20 minutes, not exaggerating, I received 2 emails I'd been waiting for. Not because the universe suddenly decided to help me out, but because I stopped broadcasting that low-frequency hum of seeking. The reality feedback loop recalibrated instantly. Here's a practice that sounds too simple to work, but it's been the most powerful tool in my toolkit. 1 morning block of 90 minutes completely offline. No phone, no laptop, no smartwatch. Just you and whatever task you're working on. Or even just you and a walk, a book, a conversation with yourself. The first time I tried this, I felt phantom buzzing in my pocket for the first 20 minutes. My brain kept generating fake urgencies. What if someone needs you? What if you miss something important? But I stayed with it. By minute 30, my attention quality shifted. By minute 60, I had 3 insights about problems I'd been forcing solutions onto. By minute 90, I'd attracted 3 actual solutions. A client reached out with an idea, a supplier offered an unexpected discount, and I had a breakthrough about a creative project. 90 minutes of coherent attention created more results than a week of fragmented hustle. Now let's talk about what I call reality turbulence, because this is where most people freak out and revert back to the observer loop. When you shift your coherence frequency, when you genuinely drop the searchlight and start radiating sunlight, reality doesn't always immediately smooth out. Sometimes it gets bumpy first. Delays happen, plans change, things that seemed solid suddenly wobble. This isn't failure, it's recalibration. Think of it like a plane hitting turbulence right before reaching cruising altitude. Those bumps aren't the plane falling apart. They're the atmosphere adjusting to the new altitude. The old timeline is dissolving, the new one is forming, and there's a phased transition period where temporal echoes from the old pattern are still clearing out. Your body will give you signals during this recalibration. Mental noise might increase for a day or two. Your sense of taste might shift. Food that usually tastes good feels off. You might experience split sleep, waking up at odd hours. You'll crave water more. You'll feel an urge to take short walks at random times. These aren't problems to fix. They're indicators that you're crossing into a different reality track. The quantum sensitivity of your system is adjusting. I learned to welcome these signs instead of pathologizing them. When I notice that restless 3 a.m. waking, instead of fighting it, I do my breathing practice, journal for 5 minutes, and trust that my consciousness is processing the transition between parallel timelines. Usually by the next day, something clicks into place that I couldn't have orchestrated through effort. Here's what I now build into my daily rhythm, and I call it habit DNA. 90-second anchors before any email check, any meeting, any potentially contracting moment. Breathe into the heart space. Expand peripheral vision. Set an internal intention to emit, not extract. These aren't productivity hacks. They're reality-shifting tools. They're reminding your nervous system, we're the sun now, not the flashlight. We're creating feedback loops based on coherence frequency, not fear-based seeking. And when you stack these anchors throughout your day, you're essentially training the unified field to reorganize around a completely different set of probability waves. The old loops lose power. The new coherent attention becomes your default. What's coming next will show you the unmistakable markers that tell you the shift isn't just happening in your head. You'll know you've actually shifted reality tracks when time starts feeling different. Not in some abstract, mystical way, but in a very tangible, wait, how is it already 3 p.m. kind of way. Time becomes elastic. Hours expand when you're in flow, contract when you're forcing. This isn't perception tricks, it's evidence that you've moved into a different relationship with the quantum field. When you're locked in the observer loop, time feels heavy, linear, like you're dragging yourself through molasses. But when you shift to coherent attention, you enter what physicists call phase transition, where the old timeline's rigid structure dissolves and you're surfing probability waves instead of fighting against them. Tasks that used to take hours suddenly take minutes. Solutions appear before you've fully formulated the problem. Another marker that's impossible to miss. Your inner critic goes quiet. That voice that's always narrating, judging, second-guessing every move. It doesn't disappear completely, but it loses its grip. You'll notice you can hold a thought without it immediately spawning 17 anxious what-ifs. This is a sign that you've reduced the mental static that was collapsing quantum openings prematurely. When observation quality improves, when you're no longer strangling every possibility with tense focus, your mind doesn't need to run those defensive loops anymore. The silence isn't emptiness, it's spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, the unified field has room to communicate through intuition, synchronicity, and those sudden knowing moments that arrive fully formed. Speaking of synchronicity, this becomes so frequent, it stops feeling special and starts feeling normal. You think of someone, they text. You need information, you randomly overhear a conversation that answers your question. You're considering a decision, and a billboard or a book title gives you the exact clarity you needed. This is morphic resonance in action. When you're emitting coherent attention instead of desperately seeking, you're essentially broadcasting on a frequency that the field can match. It's like you've tuned your radio to the right station. Before, you were getting static because you were stuck between frequencies, half forcing, half hoping. Now you're locked in, and the signal is crystal clear. Reality starts feeling collaborative instead of adversarial. Here's where the whole game changes, and it's the shift from seeking to emitting that most people never make. I noticed this one morning at a coffee shop. Usually I'd walk in with an agenda, need to network, need to make an impression, need to get something, pure extraction energy. But this time, I just finished my 2-minute practice. I walked in to serve, to appreciate, to emit coherence without needing anything back. I complimented the barista genuinely. I held the door for someone. I smiled at a stranger without wanting conversation. Within 10 minutes, 3 separate people started conversations with me. One became a client. One offered an introduction I'd been chasing for months. One shared an insight that solved a problem I hadn't even mentioned. I didn't hunt for any of it. My coherent attention created a magnetic field, and aligned outcomes moved toward me. The timeline you're on has a rhythm, a natural pacing that's unique to you. One of the biggest traps is comparing your timeline consolidation to someone else's. Someone might manifest a result in 3 days. For you, it might take 3 weeks or 3 months, not because you're doing it wrong, but because your highest timeline has a different architecture. Think of it like trains at a station. Each train arrives at its own schedule. You can't force the 3 p.m. train to show up at noon, but you can be present on the platform, ready to board when your train arrives. That readiness, that coherent presence without desperate forcing, is what allows you to catch quantum openings when they appear. Pressor collapses possibilities. Prontidome expands them. I learned this the hard way with several contracts that I tried to rush. I'd push, follow up aggressively, try to force closure. Nothing. Then I'd release, focus on emitting rather than extracting, trust the timing. Suddenly, those same contracts would close without me lifting a finger. Same opportunities, different attention quality, completely different timeline experience. The feedback loop wasn't punishing my effort, it was responding to my frequency. When I was in searchlight mode, the field kept serving me, not yet. When I shifted to sunlight mode, the field served me, here it is. Your advancement markers aren't just external results. They're internal shifts in how you relate to time, uncertainty, and your own power to shape reality through the quality of your observation. And what I'm about to give you next is a 7-day laboratory where you can test every single principle we've covered. All right, let's make this real. Theory is beautiful, but application is where transformation actually happens. I'm going to give you a 7-day protocol that's simple enough to follow, but powerful enough to recalibrate your entire relationship with the observer effect. This isn't about adding a mountain of new practices to your already busy life. It's about inserting strategic anchors that shift your attention quality from hunting to radiating. Think of this week as a controlled experiment, where you're both the scientist and the subject, tracking how reality responds when you change the coherence frequency of your observation. Grab a notebook, because you're going to want to document what unfolds. Every morning, before you touch your phone, before you check anything, give yourself 2 minutes. Just 2. Set a timer if you need to. First 30 seconds, hands on your heart. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 6. Feel your attention drop from your spinning mind into your chest. Next 60 seconds, practice peripheral vision. Sit or stand, soften your gaze, and expand your awareness to include everything in your visual field without focusing on any single thing. You're training yourself to be the sun, not the searchlight. Final 30 seconds, drop into objectless gratitude. Not grateful for specific things, just the pure feeling of appreciation humming in your system. This morning anchor sets your baseline frequency before the day's chaos hits. You're telling the quantum field, today I emit coherence, I don't extract outcomes. Midday, somewhere between lunch and that afternoon energy dip, take one short walk without your phone. 10 minutes max, no podcast, no music, no agenda. Just you, your feet, and whatever you notice. Watch how light hits buildings. Notice the texture of tree bark. Observe people without staring. Let your mind wander without directing it. This is your pattern interrupt, the moment where you break the feedback loop of accumulated tension. I can't tell you how many breakthroughs have hit me during these walks, insights that never would have come if I'd stayed glued to my screen. You're creating temporal echoes of spaciousness instead of contraction. The unified field reads this as an opening and starts rearranging probability waves in your favor. Every night before sleep, spend 5 minutes with your journal. Write down 3 things and only 3. Any dreams or dream fragments you remember from last night, 3 synchronicities or coincidences that happened today, and 1 moment where you caught yourself in searchlight mode and consciously shifted to sunlight mode. Don't overthink it. Don't make it poetic. Just capture the data. After 3 days, you'll start seeing patterns, recurring symbols in dreams. Similar types of synchronicities clustering around certain activities, specific triggers that pull you back into the observer loop. This isn't navel-gazing, it's tracking how your attention quality creates reality feedback in real time. You're building quantum sensitivity to the field's responses. Now for the discipline that'll probably challenge you most, attention hygiene. For this week, limit yourself to 2 focused work blocks of 90 minutes each and only 3 message-checking windows per day. Morning, midday, evening. That's it. I know this sounds impossible in our always-on culture, but here's the thing. Fragmented attention creates fragmented results. When you're checking messages every 15 minutes, you're collapsing probability waves constantly, giving the field no room to organize coherent outcomes. Those 90-minute blocks of uninterrupted focus, that's where you're actually emitting at a high coherence frequency. That's where breakthrough phases happen. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Let people know you'll respond within a few hours, not a few seconds. Watch how much more reality starts cooperating when you stop interrupting it every 5 minutes. Here's your daily declaration, and I want you to say it out loud every morning after your 2-minute practice. Today, my attention radiates coherence. I permit the new. Say it like you mean it. Let it land in your body, not just bounce around in your head. This isn't affirmation fluff, it's a frequency broadcast. You're setting an intention that reorganizes your morphic resonance for the entire day. The field isn't listening to your words, it's reading your energetic signature. But words spoken with genuine presence help align your nervous system with that signature. Your measure of progress for this week isn't how much you accomplish, it's how much shifts from you hunting to reality offering. Count the incoming messages, calls, and opportunities that arrive without you chasing them. That's your real scoreboard. That's evidence you've switched reality tracks. And trust me, by day 7, you won't want to go back to the old operating system. So here's the real question. Are you actually going to apply this, or are you going to bookmark it, say, that was interesting, and go right back to the observer loop tomorrow morning? Because knowledge without application is just entertainment. You now understand how attention quality creates reality feedback. You know the difference between searchlight consciousness and sunlight consciousness. You've got the 2-minute practice, the 7-day protocol, the markers to watch for. But none of it matters if you don't actually test it in your own life. What would shift if you stopped checking compulsively for just 1 day? What could recalibrate if you gave reality 90 minutes of coherent attention without fragmentation? What timeline is waiting for you on the other side of releasing that jaw tension, that shoulder grip, that desperate need to control outcomes? You've been forcing for so long that surrender feels dangerous. But what if surrender isn't giving up? What if it's finally allowing the quantum field to deliver what your tight grip has been blocking? Try the protocol. Track the feedback. Notice when synchronicities cluster. Pay attention to how technology responds to your state. Watch your pets, your plants, the strangers around you. Reality is talking to you constantly. You've just been too contracted to hear it. If this resonated, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, because what's coming next will take everything you just learned and amplify it exponentially. In the next video, I'm going to show you what happens when you trust quantum physics for 72 hours straight and witness results that'll make today's insights look like the warm-up. You ready?